Hey, well, Merry Christmas morn. That went off with a bang, didn't it? I just went to press. Look good. Not a good look. Just went to press record there, and as my camera dropped, I heard the third. It was actually the first. I heard the first dawn chorus of a magpie welcoming in this beautiful, blessed Christmas day. A day where all the slaves get a day off, except apparently I heard some work at McDonald's. Anyway, I've been up all night. I've been drinking a couple of beers, and I've been thinking about a lot of different truthful things. And some very whack ones too. So, the main one I want to bring to people's attention is this proposition I've been putting forth for a long time. So this has nothing to do with my general friends, my good, loving people, my happy people, my beautiful Thirak, Jujan. That's not even how you say it. Jujan. It is late. It is drunk. I want to try and focus on a few particular things that at this time of night matter to me. And most of them have to do with the shape of this flat earth we live upon. Now, I've asked plenty of people plenty of times. I've had a bit of a look around. I cannot find it. But I do have one of those floaty bowls. It's one of those big ones that they use for like crab pots or something, fish nets, you name it. They float obviously, and you can tie a string at one end and an anchor at the bottom, whatever. So it's something that you can easily suspend. It's even got like latitude lines around it, longitude. All good. And this is the kind of concept that many people believe we here on Earth live upon. So my question is, for any of you people who believe this, and this is probably something you can simply do with just your normal classroom globe or anything that you can suspend from a string that is a ball. Now I asked, there's some glober that goes around on the internet, calls himself Sly Sparkane. I asked him this one several weeks back now, we're not counting, if he would like to do such an experiment. And he politely declined, saying he's done it 2 years ago by putting a camera on a bicycle wheel and spinning the bicycle wheel with the camera pointed at a far distant light and showing how all the lights around this one it's focused on in the centre make circles around it. Now that might seem reasonable. We'll grant him that. But my challenge is to do it from a ball, because a ball is three-dimensional. A wheel is two-dimensional, more or less. If you're spinning it, that camera is only going one dimension. Now you might think doing it from a suspended ball, it's still really two-dimensional, looking up at a fixed point. But technically it's not. Because what happens is the further away you get from the pole going down towards the equator, as you might call it on this ball, the camera is going to have to put on one of these things which the bloody globe earthers love. Now what do they call it again? It's I forget the names of all their toys. It's like it's a double axis of rotation, gimbalized spinny thingy that they say appears really when I glow it, because it is capable, as the globe spins, tracking a fixed object. It will come to me, I'm sure. It's a term they bandy about so much, you'd think I'd just have it memorised off the top of my head. But, I'm sorry, but when you're talking about stuff that makes no sense, it's just nonsense. So we'll just have to leave it at that. So what I'm suggesting is, if your single axis of rotation, as you'd call it, on your, that thing with an arm that you point up at the sky and think proves your globe, that's the one I'm talking about. You'd think after hearing it a million times off globetards, I would remember the name by now. Maybe if I just meditate for 5 minutes. Nah, fuck it. Anyway, it's one of their toys that the rich guys have, the ones who fly the jets, like, what's his name, Woofy, the... Oh, and so I just got this single axis of rotation and I prove we live on a globe. That Woofy. I better have a drink before I do that again. Yeah, it's such a nonsense piece of equipment. So all I'm saying is, okay, get 2 of these things with your single axis of rotation. Because this is what you claim, single axis of rotation. When you actually go and investigate it for how they track any star, they've got a double axis of rotation. That's how they track stars. That's how they get star thingies. I really should get some sleep before I start these videos next time. But tonight, it's a special occasion, because this morning was Christmas. It's Christmas Day. So we'll just have to keep talking until the truth becomes apparent. So what I'm saying is, on a spinning ball, put a camera down here, up here, point this one at the North Pole, that one at the South Pole, spin your ball, and show us how star trails are made. And you know what we will discover? You cannot make star trails from a spinning ball. And yet, this is the #1 proof that the globe believers, who unfortunately we are reduced to calling globe-tards, as much as I hate that name, it's offensive to people who have genuine retardation, because these people have actually got some amount of intelligence, and yet they abuse it by getting indoctrinated into an ancient, superstitious, religious belief that has them thinking they live on the outer surface of a spinning ball flying through outer space. I know. You would think in this day and age people would have a bit more sense. But no. The Hollywood indoctrination, the NASA indoctrination, the whole Jesuit-inspired sun worship, ancient superstitious belief of putting the sun at the centre of worship, has everybody indoctrinated. Well, I should not say everybody. There are now millions, growing every day, of people who no longer believe We're on a spinning ball going around the sun. And that's why I like to say that one of their strongest proofs, the star trails, is not a proof at all. It is, in fact, a hideously destructive belief which cannot be proven in their own model. Now I say again, get two cameras, a little camera on your globe, point it towards the South Pole, point one towards the North Pole, put it in a great big room, put some artificial stars on the roof, some glitter on the floor, do what you must do, so that you can have your camera pointing to a fixed point, and you will find that because it's on a ball, it will not stay focused on a fixed point, making perfect star trails around that fixed point. Now that's just number one of the biggest globe debunk proofs. I mean, there are far better ones. Water level, of course, that's just a go-to given. We know that water fills a container. Like that being a container, I can't pour water into that and have it go higher than the edge, which would represent, say, the edge of a continent, and not have that water flowing over to the continent. So whenever you're looking at a ball, and you've got a continent over here, and you've got a continent over here, and you've got a big bulge of water up here, that water is going to flow over those continents, or it's going to settle out and go level, like we know water does, in which case it's flat. That's actually the best go-to. But a second, third, another one that we might readily discuss, because this is one I think I've seen a lot of flat earthers use, and I don't think it's a great one. And so kudos to the globe earthers, because look, the globe earth model has stood a test of time for as long as it has, because a lot of stuff make a reasonable amount of sense. I mean, okay, so you believe the ground is spinning beneath our feet 1.35 times the speed of sound. That does not make sense. You also believe that the ball is hurtling through space at an average of 86 times the speed of sound. Also makes no sense. But one thing we will give you is that pilots do not have to duck the nose down in order to not fly off into space. Now, even though it's a given by the mathematical proof of the curvature of the Earth that at 8 inches per mile squared, when you go a distance of 90 miles, you must have a drop of 1 entire mile. Now that is 2 times the height of the world's tallest building, the Burj Khalifa over in Arabica, or wherever it is. Somewhere over there in oil land. That building, the world's tallest building, is only 1/2 of a mile big, and yet in 90 miles, a plane must descend twice that height, which means every 10 to 15 minutes it's got to drop by that much. Now, because I am a logician and I understand the nature of flight, and I understand the nature of thrust, and I understand the nature of planing through the air, I will grant you the globe's believers have a small little bit of credibility, teeny little bit, which says that an aeroplane only applies just enough thrust to maintain the same elevation from the Earth the whole time. So it's actually dropping as it's travelling 500 miles per hour, pointing its nose up 3 degrees, and therefore, yeah, okay, I will give you that one, that the plane is actually dropping at the same rate it's maintaining its level, and so the flat Earth loses on that one. Big whoop. I'm happy to give you that one, because to 1.35 times the speed of sound of spin and 86 times the speed of sound, the frickin' orbit around the sun. Oh, did I mention, what is it, 360 some shit? I couldn't even be bothered to calculate. Times the speed of sound that the sun is allegedly speeding through space. And we're just drifting around it with a moon going backwards around us once every 27.3 days. I think I could rest my case on that alone, but I see it's only 15 minutes and 50 seconds, and therefore there is more. Simply because these are points that a few people have been trying to argue with me just recently, and I haven't really been giving them enough attention. Number one, I look out my front door at night time. Now it is morning, and it's really overcast. It's actually raining. Woohoo! The drought is broken. I look out my front door when I go out for a walk. I walk down the road usually before I really stop to notice, because there's 0 street lights down the road, not very far, a few hundred metres. By the time I get into the Byron Bay Shire, there are no street lights, and the road turns to shit. It's really rough on my feet. I can't see a thing. But I've got my little dog with me on the lead. He guides me through the dark. I usually have a walking stick with me, just to fend off pythons and dingoes and shit. And by the time I get through to the clearing, there, over the escarpment, because this place is very high elevation, no light pollution, I get the best, most beautiful view of the stars. And there, right there, where I stand with this telegraph pole as a marker point, shows me the Southern Cross. Now, I will grant you, it might be pointed this way, it might be pointed that way, it might be pointed that way, all throughout the year. That's no problem for me. I know the globers will describe that as saying, well, that just means it's so far away, it's really, really, like, infinitesimally big. That's how they get away with everything, by saying how big it is. That, even though we're on the other side of the sun every 6 months, and night time is looking away from the sun, should be looking 180 degrees away in the opposite direction, they just, no, you're still looking down, because you're on the bottom of the earth. Down there in Australia, you just look down towards the southern celestial pole, and that explains everything. Even though orbit around the sun means nighttime is always on the opposite side of the sun. I don't know why even the most sensible globe-tard can't understand why the stars should be constantly looking different, not just seeing them at different angles, not just seeing them slightly rotated, but completely different. I won't even talk about why day and night should be swapping places either, but I will just mention we do use a fixed clock of measurable time 24 hours per day. Now, I don't care how much you bend over, look up and pull out a sidereal day out your butt. I don't care. I don't. Because the sidereal day is just the measurement of the stars, not the sun. And then you would turn around and say that 4 minutes daily difference over a period of 4 years gives us a leap year. I mean, I hate to be the one to break this to you. That is not a leap year. A leap year is the sun going around us, spiralling upwards, spiralling downwards, and taking 365.25 days until decides to go back up again. So it's half and half. From the, you could say from the bottom to the top, because we just had our winter solstice for you inner hemispherians. For us outer hemispherians, no, it's not a sphere, was our summer solstice. That is when the sun is lowest, nearest to us, and by being nearer, appears to go in a bigger circle, distance perspective, and as it goes back up higher until the June 22nd solstice, the inner hemispherian's winter solstice, that is when it appears to make a smaller circle because it's further away. It's so logical. It's like, why haven't they been teaching this to the kids in the schools for the last 1,000 centuries, or from here on? That's how the seasons work. The sun shining through the least amount of atmosphere creates the most heat. So that's why the inner hemisphere gets summer when the sun is further away from us. Because shining through less atmosphere, because of perspective, because the atmosphere is always the same height. Height and distance are the most important aspects to try and comprehend about perspective. So the other one that I was getting asked today, hopefully I've got enough time to keep going because I'm thirsty. I was on the channel of Mr. Sensible. My sound quality was very poor, and that was a bugger, because I had a lot to say and I didn't really get a chance to say it. So they're saying about why a boat disappears in the distance over the horizon. Now this one is very simple. I think you can see behind me, there's a ceiling line behind me, and maybe the camera's not pointing down low enough, but you can look into the corner of your own room and see for yourself how the ceiling appears to be rising up to eye level. The other ceiling, the floor one, and the upper ceiling, sealing it all in. And they were all sealing it in from the sides as well. Everything converges to the centre of your field of vision. Everything. Always. But because you are very small and you are very low to the ground convergence point is always going to be far, far nearer than the points on the horizon, which you can see through the sky, which are much further away. So if, for example, you're looking out across at a very large ship or boat with somebody on it, you can see the person standing up on the upper deck above the convergence point, because the entire ship is much higher than the convergence point. You are your own fixed height, let's just say 6 feet for simplicity's sake, 180 centimetres. That is your viewing height, 180 centimetres above the level, which is actually quite tiny. If you extended that out far enough away, it's about 5 kilometres or 3 miles. That is your angle of view from sea level. So to think that your tiny, tiny little viewpoint, if we put that into perspective, I've tried to do this before, but obviously I have to keep doing it again and again. If we put that into perspective, it's about a 1 in 3,000, which means a tiny, tiny little millimetre is your viewing height, and you got 3 of these. That's 1 metre. So 1, 2, 3. That's how far you were seeing in your tiny, tiny, tiny little perspective, which appears massive to you because that's all you see of the world at any given time. That's perspective. 3 kilometres. You put that into a map and you look at your town, and you'll see that that is a tiny little millimetre. And you put your town into an even bigger map, and you'll see that massive 30, 300 kilometres, whatever you want to call it. It's still a tiny, tiny little dot. That is how tiny we are compared to the massiveness of this planet Earth. And that is why we only see 3 miles from 6 feet of height and delude ourselves into thinking that that is curvature because Polaris disappears behind it when you reach about the equator coming from the north. Hello, how crazy are you? As I even tried to explain on the channel, climb up Mount Kilimanjaro, 15 degrees below the equator, and you can still see Polaris. Anything on a ball. If the ball is circular and going up is perpendicular, and you go up, to go up from over here means up is going the wrong direction to see over here. Going up does not allow you to see over curvature. But granted, it will give you some small advantage for a small amount of time. But for the most of the time, you go in the opposite direction, away from what you are trying to see over. It is clearly not possible to gain very much viewing advantage by going up and away. Going up across a flat surface, well, if you're down here, okay, you're going to see there. Up to here, to there. Up to here, woo, you're going to see much, much further across a flat surface by gaining height. But if it was curved, it's all still out of the way because you're actually going up over there. That is the biggest problem with you people that believe we live on a spinning space ball. You don't understand the most basic, fundamental aspects of viewing reality, of understanding convergence. Everything converges to the center. And as you gain height on a flat surface, you will see much further. And if you are down low and something much further has height advantage, you will be able to see it because it's the way it works. But on a curve, it's over. It's gone. It's behind the curve. And its height means it's further away. That's all I have to say today. Oh, well, also Merry Christmas and cheers. Thanks for listening because I'm off my chops.